Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told how to voice the radio. So today, we need to look at star Pokemon. You see, we've not really looked at star Pokemon before, and that seems like, like a little bit of a mistake, honestly. So let's rectify that today, shall we? Now, Pokemon Star, Star Pokemon, call them whichever one you like. They came around initially in EX Rocket Returns, which was an expansion that was released in 2004, October in Japan and November when it came out in English. And it brought with it these Pokemon Star. Now, what was interesting about these Pokemon Star, I mean, there were cool little things like the characters were generally busting out of their window in the card, so to speak, busting out of the border. But what was super interesting is that they were limited to one per deck. You could only have one Pokemon Star of any description in your deck. So if you popped in a Torchic Star, for instance, you wouldn't then be able to play a Regirock Star. That would be very, very naughty. You're not allowed to do it. Now, they're all basic Pokemon. Now, they're not actually all basic Pokemon. Some of them are Stage 1, Stage 2, etc. Metagross, for example. However, they were all basic in the card game. And weirdly enough, they were all illustrated by Masakuzō Fukada. Apologies for the pronunciation. Having said that, all the normal arts of the tag teams are illustrated by Mitsuhiro Arita, so maybe that's not quite so weird. Now, generally speaking, the odds of finding the one were approximately 1 in every 2 booster boxes, according to the lovely folks over at Bulbapedia. So you're talking like 1 in every 72 packs, which meant that the prices went very, very high. Some of them were playable, we'll get to them in a moment. Generally speaking, they were rare and cool, and people loved them. So let's take a look through them, shall we? So starting off, we had, well, weirdly enough, right, in EX Rocket Returns, there were only 3, and they were Mudkip, Torchic, and Treecko. Actually got their own Pokemon Stars. We did get into bigger, badder Pokemon as we went along. We didn't get any more weird basics. These were weird little basics that got their own Pokemon Star, and that makes me delighted. So, starting off with Mudkip then. I mean, like I say, they're all basic Pokemon. What we see here, 70 HP, 1 Water Energy, flip a coin. If head, discard an energy attached to the defending Pokemon. 2 Energy, 20 damage. If your opponent only has 1 prize card left, you do 70 damage, and you put them to sleep. It was kind of fun. If we have a little bit of a look at Torchic, again, we got a fire Pokemon, as we might expect. 1 colorless energy, 20 damage, flip a coin. If tails, discard a fire energy from Torchic. 2 fire energy, 20 damage, but if your opponent only has 1 prize card left, 70 damage plus confusion. And you might be seeing a little bit of a pattern here, because Treecko, grass obviously, 1 colorless energy, 10 damage, that's a little different. But 2 grass energy, 20 damage, if your opponent's only got 1 prize card remaining, 70 damage plus poison. They weren't the most amazing cards ever, but they were incredibly cool. Moving into EX Deoxys, we had 3, and by this stage, right, we're moving into legendary Pokemon. So we had Latias Prism Star, 1 colorless energy, 10 damage. Remove 1 damage counter from each of your Pokemon. 1 fire, 1 water, 1 psychic, 50 damage. If the defending Pokemon is an EX, discard all energy cards attached to Latias Star, and you do 150 damage. And what was very cool is that Latias was one of really 5 of them that did actually see a little bit of play. And the reason was very simply, it allowed you to get one-hit KOs on pretty much any Pokemon EX in the format. It was played in decks like, well, Blastoise, for instance. Okay, Blastoise couldn't accelerate all the energy onto it, But it can accelerate the water energy using Energy Rain, for instance, which was quite nice. And then, of course, we had Holland's Cast form, which you basically attached as an energy card to one of your Pokemon that already has an energy, and then return an energy card attached to them into your hand. Basically, it's a double rainbow energy that you swap for a card already attached. So between Blastoise and Holland's Cast form, you can actually get it going in a single turn, one-hit KOing any Pokemon EX. It was one of the, like I say, kind of 5 that actually saw a bit of play. Latios Star came along with 80 HP, 1 colorless energy, 10 damage, remove 1 damage counter and all special conditions from Latios Star. 1 grass, 1 lightning, 1 psychic, 50 damage. If the defending Pokemon is a stage 2 evolved Pokemon, discard all energy and do 100 more damage. Again, we see that it's very much a pair with Latias, but Latias having the water energy and KOing the EXs did give it a bit of an edge. Now, Rayquaza actually got 2 stars. The first one here, 1 fire, 1 lightning energy, and you flip a coin until you flip tails, 30 damage for each heads. 2 fire, 2 lightning energy, you discard all energy cards attached to Rayquaza, and do 100 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Yeah, that is a phenomenal amount of damage, bearing in mind back then, Pokemon generally had lower HP. Now, it worked quite nicely with the Dragonite Delta, because once during your turn you could attach a lightning energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. That kind of helped to get it rolling, and it just did huge damage. This was another one of these that did see actually quite a bit of play. Moving into Unseen Forces, we again see 3 of them. We again see legendary Pokemon. We again see a little bit of a theme. First of all, we've got Entei, 80 HP, 1 fire, 1 colorless energy, 20 damage and switch it to the bench. 3 fire energy, 70 damage. If you've got less prize cards left than your opponent, should be fewer, discard the top 10 cards from your deck. So, one to use when you are behind in the game, shall we say. Moving on to have a little bit of a look at Raikou here. We see 1 lightning, 1 colorless, 20 damage, switch it to the bench. 3 lightning energy, 70 damage. If you got less prize cards left than your opponent, should be fewer, this attack does 40 damage to each of your Pokemon. So, decent amount of damage, huge downside if you are ahead in the game. And we see a similar thing with Suicune here. 1 water, 1 colorless, 20 damage, switch to the bench. Stop me if you've heard that before. 3 water energy, 70 damage. If you've got fewer prize cards left than your opponent, discard all energy from all of your Pokemon. That's quite the downside. Now, EX Delta species again had 3 Pokemon Star, and 2 of them kind of fit and 1 of them doesn't. So Groudon comes in with 90 HP, which as we've seen is a lot for a star. 1 fighting energy, 10 damage, count the number of prize cards your opponent has taken, search your discard pile for up to that many fighting energy and attach them to Groudon Star. That'll get your energy on quickly if your opponent's doing very well. 5 energy, 80 damage, discard a fighting attached to Groudon. Now obviously at the time, lower attacks and lower HP. Lower damaging attacks. Kyogre comes in, 90 HP, 1 water energy, 10 damage. Count the number of prize cards your opponent has taken, search your discard for up to that many water energy, and attach them to Kyogre. So you'll see here that they are introducing pairs and trios and making them functionally kind of similar in a very fun way. And then 3 water, 2 colorless energy, 60 damage. Flip a coin. If heads, each defending Pokemon cannot attack during your opponent's next turn. This is in a weird era where they would phrase cards in case there were multiple defending Pokemon. You know, for that multiplayer format, which never existed. Now, we then also had Metagross Star, which doesn't actually fit with the whole Kyogre and Groudon thing, But it does fit functionally with the other two. One metal energy, count the number of prize cards your opponent has taken, search your discard pile for up to that many metal energy cards, and attach them to Metagross Star. Metagross is not part of a trio with Kyogre and Groudon, but he certainly is acting like he wants to be. And then 3 metal, 2 colourless energy, 50 damage, flip a coin if heads, discard an energy attached to the defending Pokemon. Moving into EX Legend Maker, we had another trio of Pokemon Star, and these made a whole bunch more sense. If I tell you the first one was REGICE, you can probably figure out what the other two were. 90 HP, 1 water energy, 10 damage, prevent all effective attacks, including damage done to REGICE Star by your opponent's Pokemon EX during your opponent's next turn. And there were a lot of EXs around at the time. 2 water, 1 colourless, 30 damage if your opponent has only 1 prize card left, and REGICE Star is the only Pokemon you have in play. This attack does 30 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and I appreciate that that's a pretty good attack. But if your opponent's only got 1 prize card left and you've only got REGICE, I mean, doesn't sound like you're doing great at that stage. Moving on to Regirock, my boy. I need to get myself a Regirock Star. It's missing from my collection. Love me some Regirock. Again, 90 HP, 1 fighting energy, 10 damage. Remove a damage counter from Regirock. 2 fighting, 1 colourless, 30 damage. If your opponent only has 1 prize card left and Regirock Star is the only Pokemon you have in play, you do 100 damage. And remember, at the time, as you've seen from a bunch of the cards I've shown you in this video, 100 was a lot. We had much lower HP back then. And then, of course, there was a REGISTEEL we needed to round out the trio. 90 HP, 1 metal energy, 10 damage. During your opponent's next turn, any damage done to REGISTEEL Star by attacks is reduced by 10. And then 2 metal, 1 colourless energy, put 3 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. If your opponent has only 1 prize card remaining and REGISTEEL Star is the only Pokemon you have in play, place 6 damage counters instead. Cool. Those Regis really like living life on the edge. Moving into Crystal Guardians, we only actually had 2 of these star Pokemon, and I'll be honest with you, they don't fit together thematically in terms of the Pokemon that we have. So Celebi Star has a Poker Power, and if you've been paying attention, you'll notice it is the first one so far with a Poker Power. Poker Power is what we used to call abilities. Poker Powers were active, you did something, and Poker Bodies were passive, it's always there. If Celebi Star would be knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, you may flip a coin. If head, Celebi Star is not knocked out, discard all cards attached to Celebi Star and put Celebi Star on the bottom of your deck. 1 grass energy, Leaf Shade, count the amount of energy attached to Celebi Star, put that many damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So if you could pile a whole bunch of grass energy on, this could be amazing. But also, yeah, it didn't work that well. I did, however, love the fact that if you kept flipping heads, was essentially unKOable. Alakazam Star, 80 HP, 1 Psychic Energy, put any 1 card from your discard pile into your hand. 3 colourless energy, discard a basic Pokemon or evolution card from your hand. Choose one of that card's attacks and essentially use it, but you must have the necessary energy to use the attack. It's cool, but also really made you have a lot of different types of energy. Moving into Holon Phantoms, we are back up to having 3 in the set, and we find one of our other Pokemon that saw a fair amount of play. But first we saw our first Delta species. Now, Delta species were basically regular Pokemon with different types. And what was really cool about the Pokemon Star is that their different type was determined by the colour of their shiny version. So all these Delta Pokemon Star was shiny, and their typing was whatever their shiny is. So shiny Gyarados is red, and therefore Gyarados Star Delta is a fire Pokemon. I kind of love that they did it that way. That makes me really happy. 1 fire, 1 colourless energy, 20 damage. Flip a coin until you get tails. For each head, search your discard pile for a basic energy and attach it to Gyarados Star. 4 fire energy, 50 damage. Discard card from the top of your deck until you have 1 card left. This attack does 50 damage, plus 20 more for each energy card discarded in this way. On the one hand, I adore this attack. On the other hand, you've got literally 1 more turn. If your opponent doesn't discard a card from your deck, if they do, you lose the next time your opponent passes. Really fun as a very, I am going to lose, but I can win this turn kind of attack. Now we also got Mewtwo Star, and Mewtwo Star came along with 80 HP again. And 1 colourless energy, search your discard pile for an energy card and attach it to Mewtwo. 1 fire, 1 lightning, 1 psychic, 50 damage. But if the defending Pokemon is an evolved Pokemon, you discard all energy attached to Mewtwo Star and do 100 damage. So very reminiscent of Latias and Latios in that regard. He ain't no Latias though, ladies and gentlemen. He ain't no Latias. And we got our only other unevolved basic, and it really is a special case. It's Pikachu. Gotta have a Pikachu, ain't we? Now 60 HP is very, very low, but again, we've got an unevolved basic that should be evolving. 1 colourless energy, 10 damage. Flip a coin if heads the defending Pokemon is now paralysed. 2 lightning energy, 20 damage, but if your opponent only has 1 prize card left, you do 70. So you see what they're doing here is they're starting to recycle some of the extra little effects that we had before. If the defending Pokemon is a certain type, if your opponent only has 1 prize card remaining. We saw these on other Pokemon Star. Now moving into EX Dragon Frontiers, we went back to only having 2, and they were both Delta species. Starting off, we had Charizard Star Delta, the only Charizard Star we had. We never had a non-Delta, though to be fair, no Pokemon had more than 1 different star. And it's a darkness type because shiny Charizard is black. 90 HP, again it's a basic even though it should be a stage 2. 1 darkness, 1 colourless energy, 20 damage. You may discard an energy card attached to Charizard. If you do, search your discard pile for an energy card other than the one you discarded and attach it to Charizard. Really fun if you could accelerate other kinds of energy and then swap them with darkness. 4 darkness, 1 colourless energy, 150 damage. Discard all energy cards attached to Charizard Star and the top 3 cards from your opponent's deck. Like so many Charizard we've had in the past, it was phenomenally powerful and so awkward you just never got it working. And then we had Mew Star Delta, the other of the 5 Pokemon that saw a bit of play. I think I said it was in the previous set, sorry, it is the one in this set. And it is a water type, 70 HP, and it's got the attack Mimicry. Choose an attack on one of your opponent's Pokemon in play and copy it just so long as you've got the requisite energy. Now 1 water energy, choose a basic energy card attached to Mew. This does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon that is the same type as the basic energy card that you chose. It was very cool, but this got teched in as a nice kind of basic Pokemon for evolution mirrors, etc. It wasn't like Mew EX, for instance, which, well, I don't know if we can say it ruled the EX format, but it certainly gave it a pretty good go. And then we just had a bunch of evolutions. Over in EX Power Keepers, we had the Gen 1 evolutions. Flareon Star had 70 HP and had the Poké Power Crimson Ray. Once during your turn, when you put Flareon from your hand onto your bench, each active Pokemon is now burned. And then 2 Fire Energy, 1 Colourless, 50 damage, discard a Fire Energy from Flareon. Now, Jolteon may actually have gone down as the best of all the Pokemon Stars. It certainly saw play, as far as I'm aware at least, in the widest variety of decks. And the reason is the Poké Power Yellow Ray. Once during your turn, when you put Jolteon Star from your hand onto your bench, you may put 1 damage counter on each active Pokemon. This was cheeky damage. This was extra damage outside of attacks. Extra damage outside of attacks has always been good and has always seen play. This made its way into World's winning decks. This was, frankly, ladies and gentlemen, phenomenal. Saw a huge amount of play. 2 lightning, 1 colourless, 40 damage, flip a coin if head to prevent all effective attacks including damage. Done to Jolteon star during your opponent's next turn. That could be fun, but it really was the poker power here. And then Vaporeon comes and finishes off. Again, it's got a coming into play poker power. When you put it from your hand onto your bench, you may remove all special conditions and free damage counters from each active Pokemon. So you just make sure that this is going to help you and not your opponent. Now we then had 2 extra Pokemon Star, and these are the ones that carry the most value. You see, Espeon Star and Umbreon Star were actually released in Pop 5. Now for those newer players among you, or people not quite as old as me, Pop packs were given out at League. You would have a little card, you'd play some games, and after enough games, you would earn a Pop pack, which would get you a couple of random cards. And a lot of the time they were largely reprints, but in Pop 5 you could actually get Espeon Star and Umbreon Star. They were only available in Pop 5. They were hideously rare within those packs of Pop 5. It wasn't like you got a couple packs and you got one. They were very, very rare in the Pop packs. Imagine going to League one evening and pulling one of those bad boys. And for that reason, they are exceedingly rare and valuable. Now, the Espeon was by far the worst of the pair. 70 HP, and it's got a poker power. Once during your turn, when you put it from your hand onto your bench, you may leave each active Pokemon confused. And then 2 Psychic, 1 colourless energy, 30 damage, plus 10 more for each energy attached to the defending Pokemon. But the Umbreon was actually really good and saw a bunch of play. This is another one of those that I really want to add to my collection, but getting an Umbreon Star ain't cheap, ladies and gentlemen. The poker-powered Dark Ray, like all the evolutions, has what I like to call a coming into play ability. When you put it from your hand onto your bench, you may choose 1 card from your opponent's hand without looking and discard it. And this saw play as a bit of hand disruption. So you would play it, for instance, with Rocket's admin, which said that both of you shuffled your hand into your deck and then drew cards equal to your remaining prizes. It's N, alright? It was the original version of N. And then Mr. Briney's Compassion. Choose 1 Pokemon in play, return that Pokemon and all cards attached to it to your hand. So obviously you would return Umbreon to your hand and then play it again to discard another one of your opponent's cards from their hand. I love Umbreon. It was super rare, and it actually saw a fair amount of play. Like I've said, there were 5 of them that really saw a decent amount of play, and they were Mew, Latias, Rayquaza, Jolteon, and Umbreon. That is not to say none of the others saw play. It is to say that they're the 5 that saw the most. But at this stage, I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you have memories of using these? Did you have fun with them? Which was your favourite? Are you a newer player? Had you not heard of these before? Tell me your stories, tell me your thoughts, tell me your favourite. Go nuts in the comment section, but please do remember the rule, would ya? Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.